Okay, we're going to get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our session on adapting to vehicle shortages and effective planning in an uncertain future. My name is James Crocker. I serve as Director of Operations here at Merchants Fleet. I'll be introducing our discussion on how to deal with the current climate of vehicle shortages and how to understand and plan for this uncertain future we're headed into. Throughout our discussion today, please don't hesitate to send questions into the chat. We'll address each and every one of them at the end of the discussion. So let's jump right into it. Today we have Candace Groth, Director of Fleet Acquisitions.
Hello, everyone.
George Albright, Director of Products.
Thank you for joining.
And Jen Gordon, Director of Fleet Consulting.
Good afternoon, everyone.
I thought we'd get started by taking a look at the current state of the supply chain and how it's impacting the market. 2021 has been a remarkable and memorable year in the automotive industry. The year really started off with the semiconductor shortage taking the main spotlight, but that was really only one of the challenges in the industry. So let's discuss some of the other challenges that have contributed to this perfect storm, we'll call it, of supply chain issues. And additionally, what are the conditions like now? Candace?
Sure, I'll take that question. So a handful of challenges contributing to the perfect storm we're experiencing in the fleet industry outside of the semiconductors. What I'm hearing from our suppliers is overall difficulty in hiring skilled labor. So whether it be a carrier driver or someone who works with an upfitter or body modifier, hiring qualified workers who can easily step into a new job and make an impact continues to be high-ranking concerns for some of our suppliers. And lastly, some OEMs experienced record-breaking orders once business started to open up again. So overall supply chain management and forecasting all of those orders properly played into the position that we're in right now. High demand for vehicles, not enough being built for our end users. It's a complex equation that's impacted the whole vehicle life cycles, order to delivery. And it's not an easy solution and will be with us well into 2022. And some of the alternatives that we're offering to our clients right now, those are starting to be depleted. So it's time that we get creative with our clients and help them through this using our expertise and our industry partners.
Normally this is a place where the resale market can help out. We can kind of help fill that void. But right now the market is so tight and prices are going really through the roof that one-year-old vehicles in some instances are going for as much as a brand new vehicle. So, most of our fleets were in the position where they kind of trimmed the fat last year and sold off any underutilized vehicles. And they really can't take advantage of it. And now they're really more in the situation where they need vehicles. And with the delays, they really can't dispose of the vehicles and take advantage of this really strong resale market because they have to wait for their new vehicles to come in. But when they are ready, we're continuing to see really record-setting prices, really almost across the board, and we expect to see this really for the foreseeable future. So as these new vehicles get built, even if there are delays, we're still expecting them to see great results when their old vehicles come off and enter the remarketing industry. Jen, what are you seeing?
Yeah, so I can share some of when we're comparing the estimated delivery dates of what was planned at the time of order based off what we established from standard industry standards and historic order to delivery times. And then when we're comparing that to what we're seeing in current state of what we're seeing related to shortages, shutdowns, and other constraints, on average, we're seeing 54 days between what was planned versus where we are with current state. And some outliers that we're seeing, for an example, is vehicles that we expected planned to be delivered in fall of 2021 are being pushed out to the spring of 2022 due to shutdowns. So those are some things to consider related to what actual calendar year vehicles may be delivered in, and then if that impacts possible budget.
George, any thoughts on the market?
Yeah, we're not seeing widespread repair delays just yet directly attributed to the microchip shortage like we're seeing on the front end, but our teams on the maintenance side of products have encountered backordered parts which have been associated with general supply chain delays. Additionally, we've seen some of our providers, national, preferred, have some delays, or excuse me, have some pricing cost increase of 4 to 7% due to raw materials availability and increased shipping cost. And some of the recommendations we made to a number of our clients is with the reduction of the supply in the market, maintaining your current inventory becomes increasingly important. All these dynamics, they place additional pressure on drivers and fleet managers for really achieving an improved adherence for preventative maintenance intervals. So we're recommending to all fleet managers revisit their budgeting for the year, ensure that they've accounted for the increased repair cost, because we all know unscheduled repair frequency and costs tend to rise with higher mileage vehicles. Those are some of the things we're seeing in the market today, James.
Yeah, and downtime is seriously an efficiency killer, so I can appreciate that. Really, all these changes are really going to force fleets to rethink all aspects of their life cycle. But for our purposes, let's start with the beginning, acquiring vehicles. Based on the current landscape, when it comes to acquiring an urgent vehicle, Candace, what options do our clients have left? What the fleets have left?
I love talking about this. This has been for the last year what I've been talking about. So, these were your options in December 2020, not too long ago. Be flexible, order from another OEM, try a new OEM or a new model, utilize a bailment or a pool from an upfitter or dealership, or stock ordering. Today, our options are now getting a little bit more creative with each of our clients on an individual basis. A few things we have recommended: roll the order to the next model year and wait it out. Look at vehicle options. Can a truck forgo upfitting right now if the toppers are taking 6 to 9 months? Is it possible to take that vehicle as is and get the topper installed at a later date, or waiting for the truck to be 100% complete? So just talking through some of those things with our customers. Depending on vehicle selection, there may be some dealers out there that still have inventory. We're getting surprised daily by our dealers stepping up and showing us the inventory that they still have. And in some scenarios, explore our short-term leases or our commercial sales are ready fleet options. I know the inventory is limited right now just because of what we're going through, but it's still a viable option. Utilize ready fleet, allow for the factory orders that have been delayed, continue down their path for order to delivery. So delayed, but at the end of it, you still get your factory ordered vehicles the way that you wanted them. One thing I want to mention, as the OEMs are canceling orders, we're in turn communicating that to our mutual customers, our clients. Some of our clients have come back indicating cancel the order and let's go out of stock. And I want to caution clients from this thinking because, as I stated a few minutes ago, inventory is low, like all-time low. If we cancel an order, we may not be able to find a viable vehicle on a dealer's lot without paying ridiculous prices. So the best course, it doesn't feel like it's the best course right now, but at the moment is to write it out and let the vehicles stay on order with the OEMs.
I have a question.
Get what you want.
Candace, on the buying vehicles out of stock, I guess the question is, will the dealers even honor the fleet's incentive programs? I know sometimes when inventory gets low, they want to sell the vehicles in the retail mindset as opposed to the fleet. What are you seeing on that side of things?
I'm glad that you asked that question. I'll just give an example, and I sent it out to you yesterday saying, hey, check this out. They are not negotiating. And it is, if we find a vehicle that meets our customers' needs, we really want to secure that vehicle right then and there, because the dealers are not messing around. They have very low inventory and they want to make that sell. So they're not recognizing the fleet incentives. They're not negotiating with this, hence the $91,000 pickup truck that I sent out yesterday as an example. Normally what would sell for, 50, 55,000, one dealer had it for $91,000. So just to kind of give you a comparison of what we're working with out there.
Wow, that's amazing.
Great question.
So what are some additional tips for fleets to manage these impacts long-term, and what does ordering in 2022 look like?
Need to plan ahead for the next year, and it's going to be a fight for vehicles. Determine what you need now for next year. So also one thing, know who's utilizing the allocation process for the next model year, and understand the startup and the build out dates when scheduling begins and delivery dates, the delivery dates that you want. Everything needs to be in so much earlier this year. I would have orders ready to place right when the order banks open. Jen probably has a few more things that she'd want to add to that as well.
Yeah, so I can share with you a kind of real life case study that we're working on right now with one of our clients is making sure that we plan milestones ahead for the next model year. So essentially what we're doing is that we're planning out the calendar to be able to hit the key targeted deadlines related to when orders should be placed and when they should be placed based off of allocation. So from what we're doing that is we're setting this is when the deadline should be and then backtracking all of the activities that need to happen in order to be able to get there. So some examples is incentive negotiations, upfitter discussions, if applicable to your fleet, total cost of ownership analysis, vehicle selections, all of those are going to be moved ahead about 4 months from what someone might be typically used to if you usually order your vehicles at the beginning of the calendar year. So it's just very, very critical in order to have all of your different planning activities laid out so that you know once one thing happens, you then move on to the next stage to be able to get to those earlier timeframes of when you would be placing your orders this year versus previous years in the past.
And Jen, I love that you're doing that calendar milestone and kind of mapping out all of those planning activities. I love that you guys are doing that.
Yep, that is definitely something that we'll be working with a lot of our clients on to be able to make sure that we're supporting them in that way.
Good deal.
So with some of these shortages, do we see an impact on incentives? Do we see them going down, or do we see them pretty much staying the same?
I'll answer that. So we're starting to get some information from a few of our suppliers that there's going to be price increases just because of the raw materials, the labor. So expect there to be a price increase for that. But at the same time, expect that maybe there might be some normalization in the incentives for this year and go forward. If you think of some incentives, I won't name a dollar amount, but some of them are pretty high. So I think that it's a normalization with those incentives. At least that's what we're hearing. So there shouldn't be any surprises.
Okay, so on the acquisition side, my takeaways are you should plan and then have backup plans. Perfect.
Sounds good.
Well, we've talked about acquiring vehicles. On the opposite end of the life cycle is remarketing. And, as I said earlier, we're experiencing record resale values. So used car market is so strong. If you can unload or offload excess vehicles, you're gonna feel the price when you get that sale. But we know that's not always an option, but the inventory continues to get tighter and tighter, like they said. And it's really partly because there's the largest pool of buyers ever looking to buy the same vehicles. With the new vehicle inventory so limited, we're seeing new car dealers who normally would sell new cars and take those trade-ins from new cars and resell those as well. Well, they have a lot less new cars to sell, so they're getting a lot less trade-ins to sell. So they're coming after the same late model vehicles and help driving the price up. And then when you add in the fact that the rental industry had a major year last year in defleeting, and some actually defleeted as much as 80% of their fleet, now they're in the used car market because they can't get new vehicles fast enough, and they're really trying to fill that uptick in demand that they have right now. With the US opening back up and people feeling more comfortable traveling, that increase has meant a huge increase in demand. So the rental fleets have gone out there and started buying up 1 and 2 year old vehicles, whenever they could, and really driving up that market price. So the good news is, we don't see an end in sight. So we are going to continue to see very strong resale values, and we don't see any immediate end in sight. So if you don't have an opportunity to sell now, the vehicles that you have on order, when the old ones come off as they get delivered, you're still going to experience very strong residual values on those. So good information to have, to know, and hopefully to then take some of that additional funds and maybe offset some of the increased maintenance costs. Because we're expecting that if you can't cycle them out as quick, you're going to have to extend those a little bit longer. So fleets may have a hard time doing that. George, what do you think they need to consider maintenance-wise to extend that vehicle life and preserve the residual value for when it does sell?
Yeah. And luckily there's a blueprint, right? We do have a bit of a blueprint. That not dissimilar to the pandemic, or the recession, when we had fleets that couldn't cycle due to financial limitations. We had demand issues. Now we have supply issues. They're differing scenarios, but the results are in both cases very similar. And some of the lessons that we learned during those instances are very useful here. So when you're talking about the goals of extending your life cycles and preserving your residual value, being able to sell a truck for $91,000, fleet managers can look at some time-tested tactics like leveraging high mileage synthetic oils, validating with your location managers, maybe if you should implement severe duty maintenance schedule for some of your vehicles. But you got to start your driver policies. So make sure that your policy addresses care for high mileage vehicles. Consider implementing pre-trip inspections. We have a number of clients who use pre-trip inspections, beneficial obviously from the safety aspect, but also really helpful when you're trying to maintain your vehicles. Keep in mind, some of your vehicles have been sitting because of the pandemic. So frequently make sure that you're checking any of your idle vehicles. And we have a myriad of partnerships, really positive with quick lube locations. They're great facilities, but make sure if you have higher mileage vehicles, taking it into full service locations for a comprehensive inspection so that you can address any issues, repairs, or safety challenges that you might have. And also you can mitigate your downtime. So this way you don't have to take your vehicle from a quick lube location to a full service location. Now, some of our clients today, they're leveraging more frequent distribution cadence with PM alerts and reports. These tools are designed to call out vehicles that are either overdue or approaching their due PM service. Really beneficial for a number of our clients. And last but not least, consider implementing a structured PM compliance program or scorecarding process where drivers have accountability to make sure that those vehicles are properly maintained. So that this way you can keep those residual values and hopefully extend your vehicle life cycle out until we're past this.
Yeah, and I'll chime in a little bit here too, related to the data that you can use that's available at your fingertips. So George hit on a lot of great points associated to using PM alerts when they're available to you. And also to that tune is using the reports that are then available to you as well. So you know what vehicles that are overdue for preventative maintenance. And then the big thing that you would want to be able to do is gamify either drivers or branches or whoever your hierarchy is set up, so that you can then, show which branches may have a better PM compliance score versus what branches might not. So then you can drive it home to the ones that are more in the lower scoring category to be able to try to move their target up. You can also do that related to what George mentioned for the quick lube facilities versus the full service facilities, to be able to take a look at vehicles that are over a certain mileage and then see which ones are going to the full service facilities. And if they aren't, what maybe location might they be in, and then providing them with recommendations of where they can go in place of the quick lubes for a more comprehensive check of the vehicle.
Yeah, Jen, just to add on, the gamification is a fantastic point that you made. We've seen a lot of fleets, and there are a ton of case studies out there that suggest that you have better result than going after your folks. And there are ways to I think fire up those competitive nature that you have between employees and coworkers. I think that's a great structure and strategy.
So the message I take is to dive into the analytics to really help you fleet. Great, thanks guys. With all these changes adding up, meaning not only do you have to change your policies, but you have to adjust your strategies as well as your benchmarks. How do fleet managers adjust their strategies and adapt to these unique market conditions?
Sure. So the main thing on this is being flexible and also communicating internally. As you need to be flexible with order placements, ensure that communication is had with the appropriate departments for any unanticipated spending behaviors that is more out of the norm than usual, and you're not catching specific departments off guard. Also, there may be instances where you need to move your 2022 budget that you're planning ahead. If you might usually ask for it at the beginning part of Q4, that might be moved to June based off of different allocations and things that you need to be able to place earlier than usual. And then in addition to what George mentioned with maintenance is that your spend may change. Your vehicles are going to be on the road longer. There's going to be more maintenance costs associated to that. So what you'd want to do is work with your fleet management partner and determine what are the forecasting expected maintenance expenses that will happen by having these vehicles on the road for a longer period of time. So then you can make other departments aware that your what originally was budgeted and forecasted for maintenance spend very well could increase over the next couple of months to a year.
So how do fleet managers get buy-in and stay in communication with their stakeholders when there's changing strategies and they see the changing marketing conditions and everything's kind of changing quickly? George, what are your thoughts?
I think bringing your stakeholders together is really important, as best as possible in this time. I think we've all become pretty accustomed to Microsoft Teams and Zooms and things like that. So it's still very possible to do that, and it's important. Fleet managers should discuss these challenges with senior management and shared awareness and understanding. Make sure if we had a transcript, this would be bolded for us and capitalized. Over communicate and educate within your organization. It's key. Like Jen discussed, transparency and partnership are very important. Leverage your organizational knowledge. Granted, there is a generation that didn't necessarily manage vehicles during the last recession, but there are a lot of folks who did. So there are lessons that we talked about today that are still extraordinarily relevant today. Ask folks who worked in the organization that you're in if they have that organizational knowledge. What reports or alerts did they use? What did they do during that time that they could potentially learn and replicate from? So these are all things that I think are really important, but make sure that you mine that organizational knowledge that you might have within your organization. Try to take some lessons from previous challenges that we faced and overcome.
Yeah, those are all really good points, George, that you just mentioned. And, I'll second what you said and related to stressing the communication and transparency to make others within your organization aware that may not be involved in fleet day to day that you are of the different market conditions. Very overall high level view of what it is. They don't need to know, every detail, but at least so they're aware of the shifts in behavior. And then also what we're assisting clients in doing is being prepared and having them ready to answer the appropriate questions when you go and do that early ask related to model year 22. What is the reason why you're going to do the early ask? And I know, Candace, you guys have been putting out a lot of great communication to our clients related to this. So if you wouldn't mind sharing some of that, that'd be great.
Yeah, so one thing that I'll add is whatever we're hearing from the OEMs, and I talk to many of them daily, we're transparent in communicating that to our clients, and we're translating the information into what does this mean for our clients? Like, what's in it for me? You're telling me that they're delayed. What does that mean? Help me translate. We've created a semiconductor website that is updated daily if needed, as we receive the information from our OEMs and our upfitter partners. It's important to use that information to communicate to the other key stakeholders, just like you guys were saying, in fleet management and drivers, so they understand the overall impact happening in the industry. This semiconductor website, it's on the merchant's homepage under resources. So if anyone wants to go out there and use any of the information, they're more than welcome to use any of that. And again, what we hear, we kind of translate that through our marketing department and put it out there for all.
So we can say communicate early and communicate frequently to really get ahead of your planning for the next coming year. Thank you all for your perspectives. We did have a few questions come through. So let's dive into the Q&A. First question is, what's the current climate going to do to the TCO or total cost of ownership? Jen, I think this one's kind of in your wheelhouse.
Yeah, absolutely. So what I would recommend is just expect this year to be fluid. We can absolutely we assist clients, prospects with TCO analysis, and they very well will begin earlier this year than normal. So for fleets that go through your vehicle selection analysis for each model year, normally incentives are typically finalized at the time we start to do the TCOs, but very well we can begin those early and then adjust and make changes as time goes by and things get more firmed up. And then in addition to that, just be cognizant, as James mentioned earlier, related to the resale market, the residuals, they're very high right now. But while we're doing the TCOs, we're looking 4 to 5 years out. We want to make sure, and what we do is look at more of the valued assumptions that we assume the resale value will be at the time of the vehicle turn-in. So we're not just looking at today's more inflated market, and we're looking at more of what the realistic resale value will be in 4 to 5 years.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want to think that what a vehicle is worth today is what it's going to be worth 4 and 5 years from now. You'll set yourself up for failure and potentially a very costly failure. So you got to take that into consideration, and the fact that this will tail out probably, a couple of years. But when you're doing a residual value, you want to be as accurate as possible of what the market conditions will be at that point in time. So thank you, Jen. We had another question come in, and it has to do with how long are these conditions going to last?
So I can take that one, James, if you're all right with that. And I know that you had just mentioned that this is going to be with us for a couple of years. From a ordering standpoint and all the publications and the communications that I'm reading, we're in this for the long haul. I think we all know that, but this will go well into 2022 for the new vehicle ordering. Fleets just need to be adaptable and flexible when vehicles do start moving again, though. So like some OEMs may make up the production and others may not this year. It could be just a loss in production. So lack of inventory on the dealers' lots are going to be with us for a while until they're able to properly bring their inventories back up.
And when production coming back up and that inventory starts flowing again, it all has to flow through those same transporters. So we'll have to have a little patience with it actually getting to its end destination. Because only so many tractor trailers and trains around to get that inventory across the U.S.
I'm glad that you brought that up. Absolutely right.
Another one for you, Candace. How are upfits going to be impacted? So a lot of our fleets are vocational fleets, and they have upfits associated with this. How's that going to impact it in the coming year?
Yeah, so our upfitter partners during COVID last year, man, they were our heroes. And I think I said that already publicly, but they were our heroes getting the vehicles moving. And many of them right now are reporting difficulty just with labor and raw material shortages, paying higher costs all the way around the board for labor and materials due to the shortages. So to offset that increase, some of the outfitters are adding handling fees to quotes to hopefully recoup that loss. So, from an impact standpoint, we should make sure that we are set to see an increase in prices when it comes to upfitting. That shouldn't be a surprise to anyone.
Talking about the labor shortages, George, how's that impacting maintenance shops? Should fleets be planning for longer wait periods for service appointments? How do you think it's going to affect?
Yeah, well, and an answer, yes. Unfortunately, labor shortages, they've been a thorn in our collective sides for years, especially on the repair side. It's been a trend. It's been a trend. Fewer technicians coming out of technical schools. It's been there for a while. Now, fortunately, we do have about 45,000 partners in our network today, in the preferred and national and out of network also maintenance network that we can provide services for. But we are seeing some parts delays. As a point of practice, we recommend drivers trying to schedule service weeks in advance, which it's not always, doesn't always seem easy to do, but we highly recommend doing that. We suggest that drivers call vendors prior to coming in for service. It's always a great thing to do. Mobile maintenance. I can't talk about that enough. That's a tool that fleet managers can use during the real peak waves of the pandemic. It's a great way to leverage a tool that can help you mitigate unproductive downtime as drivers can have the service completed at their office or their home. So the labor is impacting the repair side, not quite as much yet as it is on the actual manufacturer side, but eventually we're gonna see that manifest itself even more. So we'll be expecting that throughout the rest of the year.
You may not believe this, but I've been in the auto industry now going over 20 years, and I think it's been a steady, slow decline since I entered the industry. There's always been a shortage of good quality labor. out there, and we don't necessarily see an end for it. So it's amazing. Well, that wraps up our webinar for today. Thank you all for your time. We'll be sending out a copy of this recording so you can revisit it at any point. And if you do have any questions that you didn't ask, or about vehicle acquisitions, remarketing, extending your life cycle, or planning your fleet strategy, please feel free to reach out to us. Thank you, everyone.